All right, welcome back to the channel. This is again Tyrell from the Nosebleeds. Want to thank everybody that has subscribed, everybody that has watched, liked, and shared. I know in the last preview video, I said I was going to do the AFC West, and then we were going to go NFC West, East, South, and North. But I'm waiting on two collabs for both the AFC West and the NFC West. So while waiting on them, I figure, figure that we go ahead and do the NFC East preview while we're at it. So real quick, I got all my notes done for all the divisions. So the ones I'm doing solo dolo, I think we're going to just go ahead and get those done and then focus on the two AFC West and the NFC West. Hopefully down the line, hopefully very soon. So let's start with the NFC East. Obviously Dallas, New York Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Washington Commanders. A little bit different organization, putting up the previous records that they had last year, and then their record that I think they're going to finish with this year with a win differential plus or minus. So without further ado, enough with the intro, let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys. Went 7-10 last year, missed the playoffs. They traded for Kenneth Murray, the linebacker from the Tennessee Titans. They traded for the aforementioned AFC East video, Kerry Elam, defensive back from the Buffalo Bills. They traded from George Pickens, wide receiver from Pittsburgh. A lot of people, again, like we talked about in the AFC North video, that a lot of people thought it was going to be DK Metcalf and it was also going to be George Pickens on opposite sides. The memes were generational but very short-lived. But Dallas ended up making a trade for George Pickens, so he is going to be the number 2 guy there along with CeeDee Lamb. They grabbed Dante Fowler Jr. from the Washington Commanders, Javonte Jones, running back from Denver. They re-signed Osa, not going to pronounce that last name, going to botch it, defensive tackle. They re-signed him for 4 years. They promoted Brian Schottenheimer, offensive coordinator. They promoted him to the head coaching position after they decided not to renew the contract of Mike McCarthy. So a little bit about Brian Schottenheimer. If that last name sounds familiar to anybody that don't know, he is the son of the late great Marty Schottenheimer. He was also the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets when the Jets had went to 2 AFC championship games appearances when they first lost to the Indianapolis Colts, and then they had lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers the following year. He was the offensive coordinator for those teams. He was also the offensive coordinator at one point during the last years of Russell Wilson's tenure in Seattle. So a guy that has been an assistant for multiple teams across the last 15 to 20 years, and now he's going to get his first chops at the head coach position. He's already not playing in Dallas. He is not playing around in Dallas. He has essentially taken full control. He's taking no BS down there in Dallas. So he is a one of those coaches that is not going to take anything less but excellence to perfection. And we'll see how he's going to go because his father was a great head coach. And if he has any of those genes in him, which he's a pretty solid offensive coordinator all the way around, I think he'll do a fine job there as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys also went out and got Solomon Thomas, a former 3rd overall pick back in 2017. He's had for a 3rd overall pick, a underwhelming career, but he still has found jobs, whether it's with San Francisco, the team that drafted him, Indianapolis, the Jets, and now the Dallas Cowboys. Not the career that, being the 3rd overall pick would expect, but still doing a serviceable job nonetheless. Key losses for the Dallas Cowboys: DeMarcus Lawrence, edge rusher, he went to Seattle. Brandon Cooks went to New Orleans, wide receiver. Jordan Lewis, defensive back, went to Jacksonville. And Chauncey Golston, another edge rusher for them, went to their division rival, the New York Giants, as we will get to after Dallas Cowboys. Draft picks for the Dallas Cowboys. They went ahead and got Tyler Booker, offensive guard from the University of Alabama. They went and got Donovan. I don't know why I said Devon, but Donovan. I still have not figured out how to pronounce that last name. Edge rusher from Boston College. Siobhan Revel Jr., defensive back from East Carolina University. Jadon Blue, running back from University of Texas. I'm putting UTEX on the board. If you guys can see the board, maybe I'll move it a little closer. Matter of fact, let's move this board just a little bit closer. There we go. All right, so I'm putting UTEC because I'm not very good at writing my V's and my U's. My U's look like V's and my V's look like V's. So I'm putting UTEX. That's the University of Texas. Shamar James, a linebacker from the University of Florida. Johnny Cornelius, a offensive tackle from Oregon. Jay Toa, I believe I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I apologize. Defensive tackle from UCLA. Phil Maffa, running back from Clemson, and Tommy King Betstow. Probably butchered that as well. But anyway, defensive tackle from the University of Maryland. Clearly, they wanted to focus on retooling the front seven, more so on the front defensive line. And also, they wanted to work on securing the offensive line as well. They got some linebackers. They really went, outside the 2 running backs that they drafted, they really went trenches in this, because clearly 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive linemen, a defensive and 2 edge rusher, a defensive back, and then 2 running backs. They clearly had a plan to have a nice little mix, but primarily focusing on those positions that are going to be in the trenches. Key games for the Dallas Cowboys: the Chicago Bears, the Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions, the Miami Dolphins, and the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, my prediction for the Dallas Cowboys, with Dak coming in for another year, they got CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, a new head coach. My prediction is this: they split the division, so they'll win 3, they'll lose 3. I think they'll beat Chicago. I think they'll beat Carolina, Denver, Arizona, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Los Angeles Chargers to give them a 9-8 record with a +2 win differential for the Dallas Cowboys. I think that's a fair spot for them. They slightly underachieved last year. I know they battled with some injuries last year, but I really, like I said, I think with Schottenheimer, he's not taking a lot of nonsense. I just don't see. It's the Dallas Cowboys. It's the Dallas Cowboys. Either they underachieve or they overachieve just to underachieve in the playoffs. It's the Dallas Cowboys. So I don't have a lot of faith in that team, but I still think they end up with a winning record at 9-8. Moving on to the New York Giants. The New York Giants, flip to my notes here. The New York Giants re-signed Darius Slayton, wide receiver, has been on that team for a few years. They re-signed him to a 3-year deal. They re-signed Greg Van Roten, an offensive guard, for 1 year. He actually scored a 63.4 amongst his position a 63.4 rating on PFF. Jameis Winston, they got to bring in as a veteran backup quarterback. They got Javon Holland, safety from Miami, the Miami Dolphins. Aforementioned Chauncey Golston, the edge rusher from the Dallas Cowboys. They brought him over. Also, Russell Wilson, who I'm expecting more than likely. I think everybody's expecting him to be the Week 1 starter. They signed him over from Pittsburgh. And then Lil Jordan Humphrey, a wide receiver from the Denver Broncos. Key losses for the New York Giants. Didn't really lose a lot here as far as key players. They lost Jason Pinnock, safety. He went over to San Francisco. And Isaiah Simmons, former 10th overall pick linebacker, he went to the Green Bay Packers. Again, Simmons is kind of similar to me as Solomon Thomas, just a guy who had a lot of upsides coming out. A lot of people were high on when he came out in the draft, but hasn't produced what people expected him to produce, but he still is getting jobs in the NFL. Moving on to the draft picks, I think the Giants had a very good, strong first round. They got Abdul Carter, a edge rusher from Penn State University. To me, outside of Travis Hunter, I thought Abdul Carter was the absolute best defensive prospect in this entire draft. And if you want to stick to strictly defense and not go with the Travis Hunter route where he goes between, playing cornerback and wide receiver, he is the best defensive player to come out in this draft. So Abdul Carter went to the New York Giants. I thought that was excellent. And then the Giants traded up into the first round, back up into the first round to get Jackson Dart, quarterback from Ole Miss. Now, Jackson Dart was very interesting because pretty much all the way up until like I want to say like the last 2 to 3 weeks before the draft, he was projected to go early third, late second, and he really started off as a fourth round draft prospect prior to the offseason even happening. So he climbed his way up between his play with Ole Miss. He had a good combine, he had a good pro day, and he shot from mid third, early late second, all the way up to the late first round. So that was a huge draft climb for him. Which, when you think of something like that, it's like okay. It's like, okay, this is a risk here. The improvement is worth him climbing up or whatever it may be. He kind of had the opposite effect of Shedeur. Shedeur went drastically down as draft day came and as draft day happened. And Jackson Dart climbed up as draft day was coming and ended up happening. Then they went ahead and drafted Darius Alexander, a defensive tackle from the University of Toledo. Cam Skattebo made a big name for himself during those college playoffs, and just his running style and his ability to block, his no-nonsense to avoid contact. He loves contact. He loves trying to run through players. Is very quick. I think he's very underrated elusively, and they picked up a good running back for him. I don't think he's going to come out there and start, but I think a guy that drafted him that late in the 5th round could turn out and work out well for them. I think that was an excellent pick. Cam Skattebo could have been picked two rounds ahead of what he actually got picked up at, but he's coming out of the University of Arizona State. Then they drafted Marcus Imbo, offensive lineman from Purdue. I put offensive lineman and not like offensive tackle, offensive guard, because he had 36 starts throughout his collegiate career, bouncing back and forth between a right guard and a right tackle. So clearly they went ahead and got a guy that can add depth and somewhere on that offense line. If you need to put him at the right tackle position, he can do it. You need to put him at the guard position, he can do both of those positions as well. So they got a very versatile offensive lineman out of Purdue. Then they went ahead and drafted Thomas Fiden, tight end from Nebraska, and then Corey Black, defensive back from Oklahoma State University. The key games for the New York Giants is obviously going to be Kansas City, New Orleans, just because that level of competition between them is pretty similar, if you ask me. San Francisco is always an underrated rivalry game between those two. Hardcore NFL fans know how big the rivalry between San Francisco and the New York Giants are. The Chicago Bears, the Green Bay Packers, the New England Patriots, and the Minnesota Vikings. For me, I think they split division games between Dallas and Washington. They're going to get swept by the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they beat the New Orleans Saints. They beat the San Francisco 49ers in a close game. I think that's going to be a close game. I think they surprised Detroit and beat them. Every now and then, these bad teams beat these really good teams. I think that'd be one of those games right there. And they beat the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I'm going to give you all a spoiler. I don't have a good prediction for the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't. And I've been skeptical if I should or shouldn't, but I don't know what's going to happen with them. But I got the Giants going 6-11. That's a +3 win differential, which is an improvement for them, especially the season that they've had last year. Really, the last couple of years they've had. The Giants is not one of those teams, for me at least, is a team that I'm like, this is a good team this year, but depending on their performance for next year, depending on how they play, how their players develop, they have a very young team. Let's see how Javon Highland fits into the defense. Let's see how Chauncey Golston fits in. I think this is a team we can watch out for in 2026. I really, really do. Whether Dable's there or not, if they sit back and decide to fire him at the 6-11, which I don't really see that happening, just because if he gets a +3 win differential and the team looks better in general, he might stick around and stay. And they might sit back and go, you know what? Let's add some pieces to compete with Washington and Philadelphia. This year, I don't think it's their year. I don't think it's that year. These are all predictions, these are all previews. I can't see far in the future and the hindsight thing or whatever it may be. I can only talk about what's going on right now, August 1st, 2025. And I think they're going to be a good team next year. But I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think this year is the building blocks towards next year. So let's go ahead and flip the board. Get a drink of water real quick. All right, now we move on to your defending Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles made this offseason very simple for them. Extend players, re-sign them, add some weapons, and try not to lose guys as much as we can. So, they extended Lane Johnson to a one-year deal. He's been their veteran since day one, since I think came out the 2013 draft. But they re-signed him to a one-year deal. They re-signed, to me, the missing piece to their first Super Bowl run when they lost to Kansas City. But they re-signed Saquon Barkley to a 3-year contract extension. They re-signed Cam Jurgens, center, for a 4-year deal. Cam Jurgens had a 67.1 PFF grade. He ranked 16th amongst out of 64 centers in the league. They also re-signed Zach Braun, linebacker. They re-signed him to a 3-year deal. Then they got Kenyon Green, an offensive guard from the Houston Texans. He graded at looking at my notes here. I write it down. I did not write it down what he graded at PFF. So they got him from Houston. They got Joshua Uche, edge rusher from Kansas City. Again, apologize if I mispronounced that. Kendall Lamb, he used to play for the Browns. He's a solid offensive tackle, somebody you can bring in, and just in case you've got dealing with injuries, Kendall Lamb is solid at that. They got him from the Miami Dolphins, and they got Matt Pryor, offensive guard from the Chicago Bears. He had a 69.9 PFF grade. Might as well round that up to a 70 PFF grade. Ranked 31st out of 136 guards in the league. Key losses: Brandon Graham had retired this year. He had been on the Philadelphia Eagles since 2010, never left the team. So they're losing a key veteran in the locker room and a guy that always produced good numbers and produced good defense for them. That is a huge loss for the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost Mekhi Becton to the Los Angeles Chargers. They lost edge rusher Josh Sweat to the Arizona Cardinals. Avante Maddox, defensive back, they lost him to the Detroit Lions. They traded Chancey, Gardner Johnson Jr. Their starting safety to the Houston Texans, and they traded away their backup quarterback Kenny Pickett to the Cleveland Browns, which they got DTR out of return. But if you're asking me, did they downgrade at backup quarterback? Absolutely. I thought Kenny Pickett did a good job for the couple of games that he did play for them. Didn't cause a lot of losses of turnovers, and he actually battled it out with Jaden Daniels in that epic game with Washington last year. But to go from Kenny Pickett to DTR and think you're going to get something out of DTR, no. Remember, DTR has 1 touchdown, 11 interceptions, so massive downgrade at the backup quarterback position. But hopefully Jalen Hurts stays healthy. So, let's move on to their draft picks. They drafted Jahad Campbell, linebacker from the University of Alabama. Andrew Makuba, safety from the University of Texas. Ty Robinson, defensive tackle from Nebraska. Mac McWilliams, defensive back from the University of Central Florida. Smale, I couldn't pronounce that name. Mondon Jr., the linebacker from the University of Georgia. Drew Kendall, center from Boston College. They drafted Kyle McCord, quarterback from Syracuse, also the former quarterback for Ohio State before, I'm drawing a blank, who just started for Ohio State. Just won the national championship. Go through my notes, because I know I wrote it down. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. Will Howard. He was there before Will Howard was the starting quarterback for Ohio State. So Kyle McCord, who transferred from Ohio State to Syracuse, now is going to be a quarterback on the Philadelphia Eagles. They also drafted Miles Hinton, offensive tackle from the University of Michigan. Cameron Williams, another offensive tackle from the University of Texas. And Antoine Powell Ryland, linebacker from Virginia Tech. Philadelphia key games, every single one. They're the Super Bowl champions. Every game is key. Everybody's coming after them. They have the big target on their back. All of their games are key games. However, with how everything happened with the Philadelphia Eagles this year in the offseason, extending Barkley, who I thought was the missing link to their first and second Super Bowl runs, and it clearly showed. I don't want to hear that he ran for 53 yards in the Super Bowl. He was that damn good to where Kansas City shifted their focus on Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts did his thing. All right, so extended Lane Johnson, obviously one of the best offensive tackles in the entire league. Extending Saquon Barkley, to me, the number one running back in the league, and extending Cam Jurgens, who ranked 16th in his position and had a 70 PFF grade, which is above average. I think the Eagles have a good chance to run this back. And I don't mean run it back to a Super Bowl. I mean go back-to-back and win the Super Bowl again. I have them sweeping the New York Giants, splitting with the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders. They beat Kansas City in the Super Bowl rematch. They beat Tampa, Denver, Minnesota, Green Bay, Chicago, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Buffalo Bills for a 13-4 record with a -1 win differential. It's hard to go 14-3 in 2 seasons in a row, but do I think they can get very close? Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. Now we go on to the other team who was giving them a run for their money in the division, which is the Washington Commanders, a team that I think slightly overachieved last year. I don't think a lot of people expected them to even make it to the NFC Championship game. They got blown out by Philadelphia in that championship game, but nonetheless, very exciting times going on in Washington. New stadium could be coming very soon, especially with that bitch-made motherfucker Dan Snyder is out as the owner. I believe this is the second year with their new owner, maybe the third year with their new owner, but ever since Dan Snyder has left, the Washington Commanders have been going up. But I do think they dip just a little bit, but who knows, we'll see. So, a lot of moves for the Washington Commanders. More bullet points I wrote for key additions or key re-signings than any team in the league. Easily, hands down. So, let's get ready and go through this. They re-signed Andrew. Let me flip to my notes real quick. They re-signed Andrew Wiley, offensive tackle, for 3 years. He had a 59.3 grade on PFF. That ranked 85th out of 140 offensive tackles. They re-signed Cleveland Farrell, edge rusher from. They re-signed him for a 1-year deal. I'm trying to remember where. Oh, that's the former 3rd overall pick for the Las Vegas Raiders when Mayock was there. Okay, just remember that. They re-signed Bobby Wagner, re-signed Noah, I'm not going to pronounce that last name, defensive back. All those are 1-year deals. Tress Way, who has been one of the better punters over the last 5 years, they re-signed him to a 1-year deal. Then they traded for Laramie Tunsil to protect the blind side of Jaden Daniels, which I thought that was an excellent move. You got to protect your franchise quarterback. Jaden Daniels made it very clear that he is the franchise quarterback for the team. So why not protect his blind side? Houston was looking on to move on from Laramie Tunsil. That's what the Washington Commanders decided to jump on that and bring him in. So he's going to be coming over from the Houston Texans and then getting him another weapon in Deebo Samuel out of San Francisco. And interesting because as I was preparing the notes for the Washington Commanders, Scary Terry requests a trade. So we're going to see how that plays out because that could change my entire prediction. Could change it. I don't know, for the better or for worse. Probably for the worst, probably -1 or -2 more wins, whatever it may be. I don't think it'll be that bad, but at least -1 win. But not having Scary Terry, who's obviously been your number 1 wide receiver for years, even when they couldn't figure out the quarterback situation. Then they bring in Jaden Daniels, bring in Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels plays well. Scary Terry plays well. But now Scary Terry's I want to be up out of here ASAP. And then they went ahead and added some pieces through free agency. They also re-signed Zach Ertz to a 1-year deal. He was a solid tight end for them last year. But again, Zach Ertz on the tail end of his career. Jonathan Jones, the defensive back from the New England Patriots. They drafted Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle from the New York Jets. They got Von Miller from the Buffalo Bills after Buffalo released him. Will Harris, the starting safety over in New Orleans, is coming over to the Washington Commanders. And they got a new kicker in Matt Gay from the Indianapolis Colts. Moving on to their key losses, they lost Jeremy Chin, a safety from they lost him to the Las Vegas Raiders. Aforementioned Dante Fowler Jr., the edge rusher, he's going over to their division rivals, the Dallas Cowboys. Benjamin St. Justice, a defensive back, St. Just, defensive back from the Los Angeles Chargers. He's going to the Los Angeles Chargers, and Jonathan Allen is going to the Minnesota Vikings. The Commanders only drafted 5 players this year, starting off with Josh Connerly Jr., offensive tackle from the University of Oregon. Then they drafted Trey Amos, defensive back from the University of Ole Miss. Jalen Lane, wide receiver from Virginia Tech. Kane Medrone, the linebacker from UCLA. And Ja'Cory Corksey Merritt, running back from the University of Arizona. Key games for the Washington Commanders: the Green Bay Packers, the Chicago Bears, the Atlanta Falcons, the Los Angeles Chargers, Seattle Seahawks, the Detroit Lions, and the Minnesota Vikings. I think they split the division kind of the same way as I had for the Dallas Cowboys. I think they go 3-3 in the division. They take care of business against Las Vegas, Denver. I think they squeak out a win against Minnesota. They rematch of the NFC divisional game. I think they'll get Detroit's number on that one as well. The Miami Dolphins, the Chicago Bears, and the Atlanta Falcons, they get wins on that to go 10-7, -2 win differential, but nonetheless a team that could very well make the playoffs. And that is it for your NFC East. The next video, which will be coming out very soon, like I said, I'm done with my notes, will be the NFC South, that consists of the Atlanta Falcons, the New Orleans Saints, the Carolina Panthers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know why I had a brain fart right there for a moment. Again, this is Tyrell from the Nosebleeds. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until the next video, have a good one.